The 10 most scandalous and shocking facts about Abraham Beame. Abraham Beame, the 104th mayor of New York City, held office during one of the most turbulent periods in the city's history. A figure of controversy, Beame is remembered for the city's near bankruptcy during his tenure and his decisions that shaped the future of the city for years. In this video, we'll explore 10 of the most scandalous, shocking, and interesting facts about his life and career. Fact number 1. Humble beginnings and a modest personal life. Abraham David Beame was born on March 20, 1906, in London, England, to Polish Jewish immigrants. His family relocated to the U.S. when he was just 3 months old, settling in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, a neighborhood known for its immigrant communities and poverty. Growing up in such difficult conditions had a profound effect on Beame, shaping his pragmatic approach to politics. In 1928, he married Mary Ingerman, a quiet and steadfast partner who stood by him throughout his political journey. Together, they had 2 sons, Bernard and Edmund. Despite his rise to power, Beame remained notably private about his personal life, which contrasted sharply with many of his political contemporaries. His modest lifestyle was often highlighted as an example of his integrity, but it also raised questions about how someone so ordinary could lead a city as complex as New York. His early struggles and immigrant background made him relatable to many, though it set the stage for later accusations that he lacked the leadership needed to steer the city through crises. Number 2. The financial collapse that almost ruined New York City. Beame is forever linked to New York City's fiscal collapse in the 1970s. After taking office in 1974, he inherited a city already on the verge of financial disaster, but his administration's efforts to stabilize the budget were ineffective. By 1975, the city's budget deficit had soared to $1.5 billion, and it was revealed that the city had been borrowing excessively and misrepresenting its finances for years. On October 17, 1975, President Gerald Ford rejected Beame's plea for a federal bailout, leading to the infamous New York Daily News headline, "Ford to City, Drop Dead." Though Ford later approved a federal loan after intense public pressure, Beame's reputation was irreparably damaged. He was criticized for being too reactive rather than proactive, and for failing to prevent the catastrophe that nearly pushed New York City into bankruptcy. Though Beame worked tirelessly behind the scenes to negotiate with banks and unions to keep the city afloat, his role in the crisis would define his legacy. Number 3. Blamed for the blackout of 1977. The blackout of July 13 to 14, 1977, was a pivotal moment in Beame's mayoralty. A series of lightning strikes triggered a citywide power outage, plunging New York into darkness for 25 hours. The resulting looting, arson, and violence caused over $300 million in damages and further destabilized a city already reeling from economic hardship. Although Beame had no control over the electrical failure, his administration was heavily criticized for its slow and ineffective response to the lawlessness that followed. The blackout became emblematic of a city in decline, and Beame was painted as a weak and ineffective leader incapable of managing crises. Political commentators at the time described the event as a final nail in Beame's coffin, cementing the public's view that he was out of touch with the city's spiraling problems. Number 4. Political backstabbing and betrayal. Beame's 1977 re-election campaign marked a brutal chapter of political betrayal. His closest political allies, including Ed Koch and Mario Cuomo, who had once supported him, turned against him. Koch, who had previously served under Beame, emerged as one of his most vocal critics, lambasting Beame's handling of the city's finances. Cuomo, too, distanced himself from the embattled mayor. In a heated Democratic primary, Beame finished third behind Koch and Cuomo, signaling the end of his political career. The campaign's brutality revealed the cutthroat nature of New York politics, where loyalty was fleeting, and Beame found himself isolated. His defeat was especially humiliating because it came not from Republicans, but from within his own party, illustrating how quickly alliances can unravel in the world of politics. Number 5. A quiet role in Tammany Hall. Beame's early political career was closely tied to Tammany Hall, the Democratic political machine that dominated New York politics for decades. He began his rise in the 1930s, working as a bookkeeper for city agencies under the influence of Tammany bosses. Though Tammany's power had waned by the time Beame entered higher office, his association with the organization raised eyebrows. Beame's low-profile role within Tammany allowed him to avoid much of the corruption scandals that plagued other politicians connected to the organization. However, critics often speculated that Beame's quiet rise through the ranks was due to backroom deals and alliances with the remnants of Tammany's leadership, though no solid evidence ever surfaced to confirm these rumors. Number 6. His role in the rise of crime. Beame's tenure coincided with one of the most violent periods in New York's history. The mid-1970s saw a spike in violent crime, with homicides peaking at 1,690 in 1976, a grim record for the city. Beame was blamed for the city's inability to curb the rising crime, as budget cuts severely impacted the police force. Public safety deteriorated, and New York gained a reputation as a dangerous, decaying city. Films like Taxi Driver captured the public's perception of the city as a lawless, crime-ridden metropolis. Beame's critics charged him with being ineffective in managing the city's resources, contributing to the lawlessness that overtook large parts of New York. Number 7. The scandalous sale of city assets. To stave off bankruptcy, Beame resorted to selling off city assets, a move that many saw as short-sighted and damaging. One of the most controversial decisions was the sale of city-owned parking garages and public properties, which were often sold to private developers at bargain prices. These transactions were criticized for lacking transparency and oversight, leading to accusations that Beame was too cozy with wealthy developers. The city's financial elite, who benefited from these sales, became Beame's detractors, accusing him of selling out the city's future for temporary financial relief. This further tarnished his reputation among working-class New Yorkers, who viewed him as out of touch with the city's real needs. Number 8. Allegations of nepotism. Throughout his time in office, rumors swirled about Beame's alleged nepotism, particularly regarding city contracts awarded to friends and family. His son, Edmund Beame, a real estate developer, was linked to several questionable contracts with the city. Though no formal charges were ever brought against him, investigations into Beame's hiring practices cast a shadow over his administration. The public perception that Beame may have favored friends and family contributed to the overall sense of mistrust in his leadership. While no illegal activity was proven, the appearance of nepotism only added to the controversies surrounding Beame's tenure. Number 9. The mysterious missing millions. In the aftermath of Beame's time as mayor, an audit revealed that millions of dollars in city funds were unaccounted for, sparking allegations of corruption and mismanagement. While no embezzlement was directly linked to Beame, the missing money added to the narrative of a mayor who had lost control of the city's finances. Some speculated that the missing funds were a result of incompetent accounting, while others believed that they were siphoned off to cover the city's spiraling deficits. The mystery of the missing millions remains unresolved, but it deepened the public's perception that Beame had presided over one of the most chaotic periods in New York City history. Number 10. A legacy tarnished by crisis. Beame's legacy is forever intertwined with the crises that defined his administration. Despite his many years of service in city government, including roles as comptroller and mayor, he is primarily remembered for presiding over one of New York's darkest periods. His inability to manage the financial collapse, the rise in crime, and the disastrous events like the 1977 blackout overshadowed any accomplishments he may have achieved. For many, Beame became a symbol of the city's dysfunction during the 1970s, and his name is often associated with failed urban governance. After leaving office, Beame led a quiet life, stepping away from the public spotlight. He lived in New York City until his death on February 10, 2001, at the age of 94. The cause of death was heart failure, a condition that he had been suffering from in his later years. His funeral service was held at Riverside Memorial Chapel in Manhattan, and he was remembered as a dedicated public servant who faced extraordinary challenges during his tenure as mayor. Despite his controversial legacy, many acknowledged the complexity of the crises he inherited and the difficulties of governing a city on the brink of collapse.